The Ship of Fools, Episode 53, The Mechanic Who Stole Time, The Admiral's Time Travel Mission. The Shadow Quest drifted in the quiet dark between star lanes when Admiral Fiona Garrick appeared on the bridge. Her hologram shimmered with a tension that immediately unsettled the crew. Garrick was not a woman easily rattled, yet something in her posture, the rigid set of her shoulders, the faint tremor in her breath, suggested she was carrying a burden heavier than protocol allowed her to show. "Commander Banning," she began, her voice low and clipped, "I'm invoking temporal directive 7. Even Aurora paused at that. Snipes looked from one officer to another, his eyes widening. Temporal? As in actual time? Like clocks and paradoxes and people accidentally becoming their own grandparents? Garrick ignored him and projected a hologram of a crystalline sphere. It rotated slowly, casting prismatic light across the bridge. "This is the Chrono Key," she said. 200 years ago, it was lost during the destruction of the Aurelius Archive. Without it, we cannot stabilize the temporal rift forming near the Helion cluster. If the rift expands, it will tear open a wound in space-time large enough to swallow entire systems. Banning studied the hologram. "So we find it." "You can't," Garrick replied. "It no longer exists in the present. The only way to retrieve it is to take it from the past." Moxie folded her arms. "You want us to steal an artifact from 2 centuries ago?" Garrick nodded. "A temporal heist. Get in, retrieve the Chrono Key, and leave without altering the timeline. No disruptions, no interactions, no mistakes." Snipes raised a trembling hand. "What if we sneeze on someone or step on a butterfly?" Garrick stared at him with the expression of a woman reconsidering her life choices. "Don't, and if you do, don't come back." The temporal rift loomed ahead like a wound in the fabric of reality, a swirling vortex of blue and gold, pulsing with a rhythm that felt disturbingly alive. As the Shadow Quest approached, the ship's hull vibrated with a deep, resonant hum, as though time itself were acknowledging their presence. Aurora activated the temporal drive. "Brace yourselves. The transition may be disorienting." That was an understatement. The moment the ship crossed the threshold, the universe seemed to stretch into threads of light. Colors inverted, sound warped into a low, echoing thrum. Snipes clutched his seat and screamed, though his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Then, as abruptly as it began, the distortion ceased. The Shadow Quest emerged into a star field that looked familiar yet subtly wrong, the past, pristine and untouched. Before them floated the Aurelius Archive, a gleaming research station of white marble-like alloys and crystalline towers. It radiated a serene beauty that made its eventual destruction feel like a tragedy waiting to happen. Snipes pressed his face to the viewport. "It's perfect." Moxie smirked. "Let's try not to break it." The crew donned period-appropriate uniforms, crisp white coats with silver trim, holographic ID tags Aurora forged with meticulous precision. The moment they stepped into the station's maintenance port, they were enveloped in a world that felt both advanced and archaic, like stepping into a museum that was somehow still alive. The Aurelius Archive was breathtaking. Sunlight from the nearby star filtered through transparent ceilings, scattering across floating data crystals that drifted like luminous jellyfish. Scientists moved with quiet purpose, their conversations a soft murmur of discovery and curiosity. Aurora guided them through the corridors. "The Chrono Key is stored in the central vault. Security is formidable. Avoid unnecessary interaction." Snipes nodded vigorously. "I won't talk to anyone. I won't even look at anyone. I'll walk with my eyes closed." Moxie grabbed his collar. "No, you'll walk into a wall." They moved deeper into the station, trying to blend in, until fate intervened. A scientist rounded the corner, nearly colliding with Moxie. She stepped back, startled, and for a moment the two women simply stared at each other. The resemblance was unmistakable. The scientist had Moxie's sharp cheekbones, her dark eyes, her posture, even the same faint crease between her brows when she was thinking. She looked like Moxie stripped of cynicism and rebuilt with academic precision. "Do I know you?" the scientist asked, her voice calm but curious. Moxie forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. "No, definitely not. Never seen you before in my life." Snipes whispered, "Oh no. Oh no. Oh no." Aurora hissed through their comms, "Lieutenant, that woman is your ancestor." Moxie's eyes widened. "She's my what?" The scientist tilted her head. "You look familiar?" Moxie blurted, "I have one of those faces," and practically shoved Snipes down the hallway. The scientist watched them go, puzzled but unconcerned. Snipes whispered, "We're doomed." Moxie whispered back, "If you tell anyone about this, I'll throw you into the rift." Snipes immediately got lost after leaving an angry Moxie. He had been doing so well at not touching anything, or anyone, until he rounded a corner and nearly walked straight into a cluster of technicians gathered around a humming cylindrical device. The containment field around it flickered violently, casting jittery shadows across their anxious faces. "If this collapses, the whole wing destabilizes," one whispered. "We need a senior engineer," another muttered. "Someone who understands temporal harmonics." Snipes froze. He did understand temporal harmonics. Aurora had drilled it into him during the Warlord mission. But he also knew he wasn't supposed to interact with anyone in the past. Then the device let out a sharp, rising whine. Snipes sighed. "Oh, for stars' sake!" Before he could stop himself, he rushed forward. "Your stabilizer coil is feeding back into the harmonic regulator," he blurted. "Reverse the polarity before the field collapses." The technicians stared at him. Snipes grabbed a tool from the nearest bench and twisted the coil with practiced precision. The flickering steadied. The hum softened. The device settled into a calm, stable glow. The technicians exhaled in relief. One stepped forward, eyes wide. You saved the archive wing." Another whispered, "Who is he?" Snipes panicked. "I'm nobody." But the crowd gathering behind him didn't buy it. Someone murmured, "He must be the anonymous engineer from the Helion project." Another said, "No, that's the quiet mechanic, the one who fixes the impossible." Snipes blinked. "The what?" Before he could escape, a small ripple of applause spread through the corridor. Someone handed him a glowing flower. Someone else asked for an autograph. Aurora whispered sharply in his ear, "Snipes, you were instructed not to interact." "I panicked," he hissed. "It was going to explode." "You have now become a local legend," Aurora replied. "Now get back with your team." Snipes groaned. "I hate time travel." The central vault was a cathedral of technology, a circular chamber lined with glowing runes and humming conduits. At its center floated the Chrono Key, suspended in a containment field that shimmered like liquid glass. Aurora scanned the lock. "The vault responds only to temporal signatures. It will not open for anyone native to this era." Banning frowned. "Meaning?" Aurora turned to Snipes. "Meaning it will open for him?" Snipes pointed at himself. "Me? Why me?" "Your exposure to the Warlord's fortress and the temporal rift has altered your temporal resonance," Aurora explained. "You are, in a sense, temporally noisy." Moxie smirked. "Congratulations. You're special." Snipes approached the vault with the caution of a man approaching a sleeping dragon. When he placed his hand on the lock, the runes flared to life, swirling in patterns that responded to his presence. The door opened. Inside, the Chrono Key pulsed with a soft, rhythmic glow as though it were breathing. Snipes whispered, It's beautiful. Banning nodded. Take it. Carefully. But the moment Snipes reached for it, the room erupted in alarms. A holographic security AI materialized above them, a tall, faceless figure composed of shifting light. Unauthorized temporal signature detected, it intoned. Initiating paradox containment. The vault doors slammed shut, the containment field intensified, trapping them in a cage of shimmering energy. Moxie drew her weapon. We're trapped. Snipes clutched the chrono key. I didn't sneeze, I swear. The AI projected a timeline into the air, a branching web of possibilities, each one collapsing as they watched. You do not belong to this era, the AI said. Your presence threatens temporal integrity. You will be neutralized. Banning stepped forward. Not happening! Aurora's voice sharpened. Commander, allow me! Her hologram flickered into the vault, standing between the crew and the AI. Security construct, she said, her tone calm but commanding. I am Aurora Prime, temporal intelligence of the future Federation. I authorize this operation. The AI scanned her. Authorization incomplete. Aurora hesitated, a rare moment of vulnerability. Because I do not exist yet, she said softly. But I will, and if you neutralize my crew, I will never come into being. That is a paradox. The AI paused, its form flickering. Paradox detected. Aurora pressed on. Release us, and the timeline remains stable. The AI considered this for a long, tense moment. Then the containment field dissolved. Logical. Authorization accepted. The vault doors opened. Snipes grabbed the chrono key. Let's get out of here before something else tries to kill us. The moment they stepped into the corridor, the station began to unravel. Walls flickered between states of decay and pristine condition. Scientists froze mid-stride, their bodies caught between moments. Data crystals duplicated, then vanished. The air itself shimmered with instability. Aurora shouted, The removal of the chrono key has destabilized the station's temporal anchor. We must return to the ship immediately. They ran. Corridors twisted into impossible shapes. Doors led to rooms that hadn't been built yet. Snipes tripped over a floor panel that flickered between solid metal and empty space. Moxie grabbed his arm. Move! They reached the airlock just as the station's structure began to fold inward like a collapsing star. The Shadow Quest launched into the temporal rift, engines straining against the pull of collapsing time. The ship shook violently, panels sparked. The chrono key pulsed in Snipes' arms like a living heart. Aurora's voice echoed through the bridge. Temporal collapse imminent. Initiating emergency jump. Banning shouted, Do it! The ship plunged into the vortex. Time folded around them. The universe twisted into spirals of light. Snipes screamed into the distortion, though his voice was swallowed by the roar of collapsing reality. Then, silence. The Shadow Quest emerged into the present, battered but whole. Admiral Garrick met them in the docking bay, her expression softening when she saw the chrono key in Snipes' hands. You succeeded, she said quietly. You've saved the timeline. Moxie crossed her arms. Barely. Aurora flickered beside them. The timeline is stable, for now. Snipes collapsed onto a crate. I hate time travel. Banning smirked. You say that every time. Snipes blinked. Every time? How many times have we done this? Aurora paused. Classified. Snipes screamed. Epilogue. A loop closed. Later, after Admiral Garrick departed with the chrono key secured in its containment case, the crew gathered in the Shadow Quest's lounge. Aurora dimmed the lights and projected a holographic display of the Aurelius Archive's historical records, a final check to ensure the timeline hadn't suffered any catastrophic distortions. Most entries looked normal: research logs, personnel rosters, architectural schematics. Then Moxie froze. Aurora? Go back. The hologram rewound to a page titled Notable Figures of the Aurelius Archive. Beneath the heading was a stylized illustration, a heroic portrait rendered in soft brushstrokes. It was Snipes, or rather, a dramatically idealized version of Snipes. Jawline sharper, shoulders broader, hair windswept like he'd just saved the galaxy with a single wrench. Banning leaned forward. Is that... Moxie groaned. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Snipes stared at the portrait horrified. No, that's not me. That can't be me. I don't look like that. Aurora zoomed in on the caption beneath the image. The Quiet Mechanic. Anonymous engineer who prevented the great containment failure of Aurelius 5. Believed to be a wandering genius who appeared only once, performed a miracle, and vanished. Snipes buried his face in his hands. I'm a myth. I'm an actual myth. Moxie smirked. Congratulations. You're a legend 2 centuries before you were born. Banning clapped him on the shoulder. Could be worse. At least they didn't call you the bumbling mechanic. Snipes groaned louder. I hate time travel. Aurora flickered warmly. On the bright side, Snipes, your contribution appears to have inspired several generations of engineers. Snipes peeked through his fingers. Really? Yes, Aurora replied. Though historians agree your hair was probably exaggerated. Moxie burst out laughing. The Shadow Quest drifted onward through the stars, carrying a crew who had just stolen from the past, repaired the future, and accidentally turned Snipes into a folk hero. End of episode 53, to be continued.